But on people, we are Tottenham TV, back here for some more content for you guys today. And I know you guys out there, you absolutely love a tier list. So that is what we're delivering for you today. It's a tier list based on the signings that have been brought through the door since Ange Postecoglou has come to the club. That's 11 signings. And we did include Pedro Porro and Dejan Kulusevski as well, seeing as they were made permanent since Ange has joined the club. The 5 tiers are not good enough. One for the future, jury's out, squad signing, and star signing as well. And as you can see, there is the signings along the bottom of the screen. But I know you love a tier list as well, Sim.
I absolutely love a tier list. I'm absolutely buzzing for this. Any reason to bang out the tiers. So Ange's signings, look, we know that he's had a very good start to his life at Tottenham, and we all know that the windows have been much appreciated by the fans. A lot of people saying we had a great transfer window. So it's time to put that to the test.
Exactly. So we are going to start off with Brennan Johnson, who's up first. £50 million signing from Nottingham Forest in the January transfer window. A lot of criticism has come his way since, maybe not since joining, but maybe seeing what he's produced on the pitch. I think in terms of the numbers that he is producing, I don't think it's bad by any stretch of the imagination, but I feel like he has been found wanting a bit when he's started games to make an impact in that way.
Yeah, it's obviously 3 goals, 6 assists so far. Not of his 9 goal contributions, 5 have come coming off the bench. So clearly he's been shown to be more adept at doing that and maybe being more effective as a super sub, you could argue. Obviously, 22 years of age. He's probably played a bit more than we expected when we did sign him at the beginning of the transfer window. And I think he's obviously shown flashes of what he can do. Obviously, on the weekend, that's fresh in our mind with a great assist for Werner. And he's done that a few times, assisted Richarlison a few times. And most of his goals have been from back post tap-ins, which easier said than done with the timing of his runs, which has clearly been worked on. But in terms of the player we hope to be getting from Forest, I wouldn't say he's exceeded expectations. I think that's fair to say, because the player we saw last season, there were some really nice finishes there. He played in the number 9 a few times and was quite effective in that position. He showed a really good finishing ability, and he's still maybe a bit more raw than we expected, probably for the money we spent on him. So there have been some elements where I've been fairly disappointed. Sometimes he's lacked a bit of confidence, and his technical ability's been found wanting a bit. But I think more recently, especially since the turn of the year, his GAs have been basically increasing, and that's been encouraging. And he definitely has pace to burn, and he definitely has elements of his game you're thinking, all right, he can definitely be a good player for us. But to spend 50 million for a player who does struggle to take on his man one-on-one and does sometimes struggle when he's asked to control the ball and technical ability. So these are things that are frustrating. So I probably would say at the moment, it's either obviously one for the future or jury's out. I'll probably say the jury's out at the moment, considering the money we spent on him. But I do think he's been decent. I'm not unhappy with him, but I'm still not entirely convinced yet either.
I think if we would have spent about 15-20 million on him, we would have slotted him straight into squad signing, because for that price, with the goal contributions that he's given us, a young player, and considering his age as well, you'd probably say that's all right. And he's only having these starts because of the injuries that we have had throughout the season consistently, sometimes shunted out to the left wing as well. He's had his own injury problems as well, to be honest, since coming here. But seeing as we have spent 50 million on him, which is a massive outlay in terms of when you're looking at the last couple of windows and the players that we have been signing, and the money that we've spent that kind of money on players like, Micky van der Ven, James Maddison, Richarlison, these kind of players. So if it was at a lesser fee, I would probably have said squad signing, but because it's of such a big fee of 50 million, which isn't in our kind of nature to do for squad players, the jury has to be out on him, because for spending that money, you expect a lot more.
I think if the money was a bit less, I'd probably put him on one for the future, just because I think that would be where we're looking at him at. But we're looking at him because of that money as a first team player to make a contribution in the first team, and looking at him how he's been playing, I'm not saying I'm writing him off at all. I think that he could be a very good player for us. But I'm just saying, from what I'm seeing, am I convinced this guy is going to be starting in our front three in like 2 or 3 years' time? I'm not convinced by that just yet. I don't know if he's good enough. I'm questioning it. I do see good things, but it's kind of too few and far between. I'm seeing flashes without seeing. It's very few games where I'm seeing just great performances. I think I can probably count on one hand. Maybe the Newcastle game I can remember. Maybe the. I don't know. There's not too many other games where I can think.
When he came on against in the last game
against Palace, he came on and did well. But there's very few games where I'm looking at a real dominant, like full performance. There's been games where he's done things which are good, but very few games where
Newcastle's probably the only one.
Yeah,
it's the only
very
one.
Few.
But in terms of like what you're saying, squad signing versus one to the future, like I do think he's proven his worth as a squad asset. That's the thing. That's why I would say he's more of a squad signing than one for the future, because he's part of the squad now. He's making an impact off the bench, which proves he's good enough to be a squad player. When I look at players that are one for the future, I look at more of like the 18, 19-year-olds, these kind of ages.
Fair enough. But I think the whole argument at the moment is that, you have to give Brennan Johnson time. He's still very raw, and that's all true. And that would indicate one for the future. That's all I'm saying. But I think the jury's out. Yeah, the jury's out at the moment. I think that he's still got a lot to prove in terms of, is he good enough to be like a starting winger week in, week out for Tottenham? I think the jury's out on that.
Yeah, that's absolutely spot on. So jury's out for Brennan Johnson. Up next, we've got James Maddison. Obviously, he came in with probably, the biggest in terms of Premier League signings this summer. I think he was the best value for money signing in the transfer window for all Premier League clubs. He's come in straight away as a vice captain, which says a lot about the man and the leadership qualities that he has produced. In his first 10 games before he got that injury, he was probably the standout performer in the Premier League, never mind at Tottenham. So I think this one's probably the easiest one that we're going to do in this tier list, and he goes straight into star signing.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. It's difficult to add on that. He's been unbelievable. He's one of the best playmakers in the Premier League. I think he's actually been pretty good since he's returned from injury as well. I know he maybe hasn't hit the heights as he did early in the season. Maybe he hasn't scored the goals that we know he can, but obviously he did get his first assist, I think, second assist since his return to the team against Crystal Palace on the weekend. I think his now goal contribution tally is 8 assists and 3 goals, or 7 assists, 3 goals. So doing really well. He's one of those players as well that even when he's not goal scoring or assisting, he's doing such a great job off the ball, and he's doing a great job from a playmaking standpoint that he's always a valuable asset to have on the pitch. He's a great leader as well. Apart from that injury, it couldn't have gone much better, to be honest.
Yeah, and I would say if he didn't get that injury, he would be massively in the conversation for PFA Player of the Year at the moment. I think because of that injury and he missed such a big stretch of the season, it's just a shame for him, because I don't think he will be in that conversation now.
Yeah, that's the reality. Unless he has like an unbelievable next 12 games, but even then they probably cut it off after like the next 7 games. So yeah, you're probably right. He's not going to be in that running anymore, but unbelievable player, and I think we're lucky to have him, to be honest.
Up next is Micky van de Ven, and the impact that this guy has had has been nothing short of spectacular, in my opinion. I dread to think where we'd be without Micky van de Ven this season. He's been a revelation since coming in. I think nobody could have expected how good he would have been straight from the off, even straight from that first game against Brentford. Yeah, he wasn't at his best in that Brentford game, but from then on, he just went from strength to strength to strength. Again, he had his injury problems as well, which kept him out for a large part of the season. We definitely felt his absence, but I mean, it's clear to see where we're going to put this guy, isn't it?
Yeah, he's completely exceeded expectations. He's been so consistent. I don't think he's actually had a bad game, to be honest. I think the lowest mark we've probably given in the player ratings this season is 7 out of 10. I don't think we've given him lower.
Probably in his first game against Brentford.
He's been incredible literally throughout the whole season. He's so vital to the back line with his recovery pace and how he just mops up from other people's mistakes. He's actually growing a lot more on the ball as well. I thought against Palace he was really progressive on the ball, and he's starting to really grow that part of his game. I expected him to take a lot longer to settle into the Premier League than he has done. He's really playing like he's been playing in the Premier League for a decade, let alone after a few months. I think he's been absolutely exceptional. He's very quickly becoming one of the best Premier League centre-backs, to be honest, and at such a young age, at an incredible feat. And obviously, he's recorded the fastest speed, one of the fastest speeds in Premier League history as well. That goes alongside it. So he would have to be a star signing. I think he's been exceptional.
And And on that speed thing that you're talking about, right, clocking up the fastest speed in Premier League history or since records began, it's an absolute freak of nature because he did that after coming back from that hamstring injury. And he did exactly the same in the Bundesliga after coming back from a long hamstring injury for them as well. So the guy is incredible. He's... I couldn't be more happy with him. You know, we had massive discussions about him or Tapsoba in the summer, and I'm so happy that he's at the club. Yeah, it could have gone a different way if Tapsoba came in. I could be saying the same thing about him, to be honest. But with Van de Ven here, I feel like he's got the exact attributes that we need at this moment in time with the football that we play as well with that recovery pace. So Van de Ven goes straight in to star signing. Next up is Radu Dragusin. We haven't seen much of him since coming in. He came in at a time of real need for us where we had those injuries at the back with Romero and Van de Ven. We were playing Emerson and Davis at centre-back. But since he came in and then everyone recovered and we haven't seen much of him.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say he's one for the future and in terms of in the future, he'll be getting more game time. I just think at the moment, we're playing one game a week. Romero and Van de Ven obviously are our senior centre-backs, and it's going to be very hard for Dragusin to get into the team right now when we're only playing a back two, especially. So next season, we're in Europe. There's going to be a lot more opportunities for him. Obviously, the domestic cups are going to be back in as well. So I think it's fair to say one for the future is fair to say for Dragusin.
Yeah, he is one for the future, but also because we haven't seen him play and he hasn't proved his worth to us, is the jury not out on him as well?
Yeah, but I think it's unfair for the jury to be out when we haven't seen him. You know what I mean? The jury's out when you've seen enough, but you're still not convinced by them. But it's not like we're not convinced by him. We just haven't seen him. So I think that, you know, you can't say I'm not convinced by him when you haven't had a look at him.
Yeah, that's fair enough. So Radu Dragusin in one for the future. Next up is star goalkeeper Vicario. I think he's quickly endeared himself to the Tottenham fans since being here. His attitude and application on the football pitch, his energy levels is just unbelievable, to be honest. He had a bit of a wobbly period through the corners in those couple of games, but I think since then he's kind of put that right. I think he's been brilliant so far this season. I think he's been one of the, if not the standout goalkeeper in the Premier League this season. I can't sing his praises enough. I think when we had Hugo Lloris for so long, we needed a successor to come in that is so strong to kind of look at Hugo Lloris and say, we need to get better than that. And I think he's actually done that. Yeah,
and considering as well, you know, he's come from Empoli, one of the smaller clubs in Italy. He's actually not been playing top level football in Italy for that long, and I know he's really shone.
Just a season, wasn't it?
I think a couple of seasons. I know he's really shone for Empoli last season. A lot of people were singing his praises, but the fact that he's come to a big club like Tottenham off the back of one season at Empoli, and he's really stamped his authority, he's become a leader in that back line, and he's actually saved us a lot of points, because we've definitely had games where we've conceded a lot of chances and we've come away with points because Vicario's made crucial saves. And I think that just goes to show about his mentality as well. And I think the fact that he's come in, and it'll be, you know, other players coming in from a club like Empoli may be coming in their shell, maybe not coming in and stamping their authority in the dressing room, but he's completely gone the opposite way. He's so self-confident. And look, I'm not going to say he's better than Hugo Lloris just yet, but the way he's going, he's definitely going to be in that conversation. And I think Vicario has been an excellent replacement for him. And he first season couldn't have gone much better, to be honest.
Yeah, he really has. Do you think he's going to get goalkeeper of the year this season in terms of maybe team of the year?
I reckon they'll give it to Alisson, to be honest. Although Alisson's been injured recently, so maybe if Vicario can keep his form up, they'll give it to him. I do think it's between him and Alisson at the moment, to be honest.
Because there's also David Raya as well, kept the most clean sheets. I don't think he's been as strong as a Vicario because he hasn't been as tested as Vicario. But I do think, pound for pound, he's probably been the best goalkeeper in the Premier League this season. I really believe that, as much as because he's been tested a lot as well, which is the truth.
17 million as well. People forget his price. So
unbelievable,
cheap.
Unbelievable. And I'm hearing Italian fans being like, he should be displacing Donnarumma from the starting lineup in Italy, and what high praise that is. You know, Donnarumma was considered as one of, if not the best goalkeeper in world football not so long ago. So you got to say what high praise that is for Vicario. So he's come in. And also when you look at it in the summer, we were all fuming that we didn't get David Raya for 40 million. Pay the money, we were saying. And Vicario, we thought, this is just the cheap option. What are we going for getting this unknown quantity from Italy? And we've all been proven wrong.
Yeah, he's been outstanding.
So Vicario obviously goes into start signing. Next up is Alejo Veliz. Again, we haven't seen him too much, Alejo, but I feel like for me, every time he's come on, I feel like I like the look of him. He's got technical ability, it looks like. He's got speed, he's got strength, he's got the height. He has been loaned out to Sevilla in January. We haven't seen him too much in the Sevilla shirt. He's just been limited to a couple of minutes here, a couple of minutes there. But I do like the look of him. But I think the only place for him is one for the future.
Yeah, it has to be there. Obviously, he did get one goal against Brighton, as you said, which was the only real bit of like a finishing ability we've had the chance to look at him, because I think that might be one of his only shots in a Spurs shirt. He's only been limited to a few cameos, so can't really make too many judgments, albeit the cameos have been fairly bright, but again, nothing to learn too much about them. He's had a few minutes here and a few minutes there, so has to be one for the future.
Yeah, so Alejo Veliz is one for the future. He's actually one I'm quite excited about. And he's one that makes me think that we don't need to, maybe not solely because of him, but that we don't need to dip into the transfer window this summer for a striker. I want to see how he develops. I'm happy with Richarlison and Sonny and him to be that number 9 role for next season.
Me too.
Next up is Ashley Phillips. Again, we haven't seen him in a Spurs shirt, but we have seen him in a Plymouth shirt this season. And he's been nothing short of spectacular in terms of since he's made his loan move over to Plymouth. So, I mean, there's not really much to say about Ashley Phillips because we haven't seen him in a Spurs shirt. He's clearly going to go in one for the future. Yeah,
hasn't made an appearance yet, but he's been getting rave reviews at Plymouth, as you say, which is really encouraging, especially considering he's only 18. Playing in the Championship is not easy, and he's doing a really good job of it, and I'm really excited about what he can give. I don't think I'm leaning towards him probably not being part of the first team next season and still going out on another loan, but I'm really excited about the prospect because a lot of the Plymouth fans are saying he's one of the best centre-backs who's ever played for them, so that's very high praise for such a young player.
Absolutely. Next up is Manor Solomon. This is going to be an interesting one because he had a fairly positive start to life at Tottenham at the beginning of the season, playing off that left wing. I remember a standout performance at Burnley away where he got 2 assists on the day. But he did get an injury and we haven't seen him since. So how many games has he actually played for us?
5 games, 2 starts.
5 games, 2 starts. So, I mean, it's hard to really put him in a tier because we just don't know how he's going to fit in properly. But what I would say about Manor and the wingers that we do have, I feel like he's got the attributes that is most suited to an Ange system out of all the wingers that we do have. He's not a star signing. He is a free transfer, so that's some value there. I think he's in between squad signing and jury's out. I'm not sure which one to put him in.
I'll just lean towards jury's out just because I think the jury was out when we signed him. I don't think anyone was really convinced, but I wasn't personally. I know I was genuinely excited because obviously we saw a bit of what he can do at Fulham, but I wasn't convinced of him at Fulham at all, apart from, he had a few really nice goals that he scored, but I don't think it was a consistent performer at Fulham, I felt, even though he was coming back from injury. He came as a free transfer. I don't think we would have signed him if he wasn't a free transfer, but he was, and we signed him. He did have a fairly positive start, but I think, again, we have to caveat it. I think his 2 best before. He had 5 games. I think in 2 of the games he played well, but those 2 games were Burnley and Sheffield United, and as we can see right now, 2 of the worst teams in the Premier League right now. The other games he played, I don't think he did much, to be honest, in those other games, and flattered to deceive a bit. But it is harsh because since then, he has picked up an injury, and we haven't seen him in a while, and I feel like who knows what he would have done if he would have got regular minutes. We've seen as well other players, once they've grown accustomed to Ange's system, they do improve. So would that have been the case with Manor? We don't know. We obviously can't put him for one for the future because he's 26, 27 now. So he doesn't go in that role. In terms of, I just think the jury's out because I don't know if he has a long-term future here. Because he's at that age. Like, I do suspect we'll probably give him another season because he got that injury. But in those 5 games we saw him, there were some positive things there, but I don't know if I saw enough to say I'm convinced this guy's going to be a really good player for us. And even a squad player, I don't know. Is he the most Ange winger we have? Based on the fact that he's probably our best winger at taking people on, potentially. But even that, I know he got 2 assists at Burnley, but I don't think he's the most creative winger. So I think the jury's out on him.
Like, it's such a small sample size, though, isn't it? There's really not much to go on. In terms of the 3 games where you didn't see much from him, who were they against? There was one against Arsenal where he came on in the Arsenal game.
There was Arsenal, Liverpool, Well, he played Fulham away as well, so that wasn't.
That was a really poor game at Fulham.
There was United at home, Fulham away,
and Arsenal away.
Yeah, and Arsenal away, Liverpool away. Yeah,
right.
So Liverpool at home. Sorry. Yeah, which look, it wasn't bad, but I don't know. I didn't see loads of stuff from him, but it was okay. But it's harsh. I know we're judging him very small. I'm just saying. I'm not entirely. Oh, he's young. He's 24. He's a bit younger than I said, not 26. But yeah, I don't think he's one for the future. I just think the jury is out on him.
The jury has to be out on him because we just haven't seen him that much, and it's been a mixed bag from him whenever we have seen him. We have seen some good performances, but like you rightly said, they have come against the lesser teams in the Premier League. Let's just put it that way. So. I do kind of just want to give him the benefit of the doubt and put him in a squad signing because I think that's what he was brought in to do. I don't think he was brought in to be a star signing, a starter. I think he was brought in to be a squad player. And that's exactly what he was in those first 5 games of the season. But the jury is out of him being a squad player as well. So it's a hard one, to be honest. So look, I would like to give him the benefit of the doubt because he's had so many injuries. But I'm happy to put him in either, to be honest.
We'll put him in a squad signing then, I guess.
All right. Manor Solomon in squad signing. Next up is Turbo Timo Werner. Obviously had his best game in a Spurs shirt last time out against Crystal Palace, getting his first goal in a Spurs shirt. He's had how many assists now? 2 or 3?
Yeah, 1 goal, 3 assists, I believe.
3 assists. He's coming on loan with an option to buy, which is relatively low for a player of his experience. I don't think he's a star signing. He's not one for the future. I don't think he's not good enough. I think jury's out for Timo Werner, to be honest. I think I have seen some flashes of some good stuff from him, but more or less from what I've seen from him has been very frustrating, to be honest.
I think in terms of are we going to pull the trigger on signing him permanently, that's probably the jury's out probably on that. But I think what we're seeing from Timo is essentially what he is, and that's a decent player who can contribute a bit, but I don't think he's one who we will end up taking on a permanent deal because that money can probably be better spent upgrading those positions rather than underpaying and going for someone like Werner who can do a job, but are we ever going to improve with that kind of player on the wings? I do think he's a good player. I think he is going to be exactly what he is now from now to the end of the season, and that is a squad signing. I think he'll fill in. He'll probably start a few games while Son's up front. Maybe when Richarlison's back, maybe Son might move back to the left and he'll be back on the bench. I think he will fulfill the role for what he was brought in to do, and I do think he's good enough for that role, which is filling in the short term and providing us some outlet in the short term. But I don't think he's going to be good enough for a permanent deal. So on that basis, because I do think I don't think the jury's out on him, in my opinion. I think the jury's in. I think he's not good enough to stay permanently, but I think he's going to be a squad player, if you know what I mean. You
say that, but after that second half performance at Crystal Palace, if he can put those performances consistently from now until the end of the season, then your opinion might change on him.
I don't know. I thought he was good against Palace, but I wasn't wowed by it. I thought he was good, but I wasn't like...
Second half was a really good performance.
I'm not saying he didn't play badly. I know he did well. I'm just saying I didn't watch that performance and saying, oh wow, what a player we need to sign. I thought he was good. He played decent, but he's still... I don't think that that kind of performance was like... Neto will drop that kind of performance, and people wouldn't even be that wowed by it, you know what I mean?
But if he would have put that performance in the second half against Palace in his first game for Tottenham, then I think the narrative would have changed a little bit. And let's say after that first game, he puts a performance like that, you would probably be messaging in the WhatsApp and saying, you know what, we might want to sign this guy.
I don't know. I think it was
only
good.
Because what we've seen so far has been fairly frustrating before that.
I don't think that's the reason. I think he was good against Palace, but I don't think he was incredible. I think he was good. But if that's like the best he can give, I don't know if that's what we need. I think most people are settled on the fact that they probably don't want him to sign permanently. Mm-hmm. Yeah, look, if he can do that week in, week out, then maybe it's different. But
that's what I'm saying.
But he hasn't done that his whole career. That's the reason he's on loan at us from Leipzig, because he hasn't been able to do that week in, week out. So, in a weird way, I'm arguing for a higher tier, but I would put him in squad signing.
You would put him in squad signing. for me, if he can produce what he produced in the second half against Palace week in, week out, I would also put him in squad signing. But I don't believe he can. I really don't believe he can. And I think he's been really frustrating for me watching him. I think his end product isn't good enough on a consistent basis. So for me, I'm actually going to put him in not good enough. I don't think he's good enough to sign for Tottenham. I think what you're talking about in terms of, you know, the price, the money could be spent better in other areas. You know, what's this is like 17 million?
17 million, yeah.
Like we could sign a young up and coming really good prospect for 17 million and then buy an out and out proper winger for like 50-60 million.
You're talking about a winger who's 18 from Club Bruges, who's got 4 goals and assists this season, is going to cost 30. So it's very hard to find players in the market for that kind of money.
You know, there's Rooney Bargi. I think you can get probably for that kind of price 20 million.
I think probably more.
You reckon more?
Yeah.
But even so, like a large proportion of that money could be used to buy one of these kind of players, and I think that's where it's better spent.
I guess it's how we're looking at the tier. If we're like, I'm looking at judging Werner, I'm saying he's on loan for 6 months. We haven't decided to buy him. If I'm looking at purely on a 6-month loan, then I'm happy to put him in squad play. If I'm looking at it from the view of, do I want to sign him permanently, then not good enough.
Yeah, that's the way I'm looking at it in a view of signing permanently, because I think you've got to judge Timo a bit different to the other players, because the other players are here to stay. We don't know if Timo's here to stay or not. So I'm kind of looking at it saying, fine, from now to the end of the season, he can probably do a job, but further than that, it's probably not good enough.
All right, not good enough then.
Timo, unfortunately, you are going into
prove us wrong, Timo.
Please, I really hope you do prove us wrong. But next up is Pedro Porro. Unbelievable signing. He did have it. It was difficult for him to settle in last season under Antonio Conte, and I think the jury was out with a lot of fans when they saw him, especially after that performance at Leicester where he got eaten alive. But we are judging him from signing him in the summer. And I think he's been absolutely exemplary this season. I think he's been one of the best right-backs in the Premier League. 7 assists this season, 5 from open play, which I think is absolutely top-notch from him. I think he's also improving his defensive capabilities as well as the season has progressed. So again, I think there's only one place for Pedro Porro, and that is star signing. And I feel like he's the first player we've brought in, and we've brought in a hell of a lot of right-backs since Kyle Walker has left the club. And I feel like he's the first one that we can say being like, all right, we finally got a replacement for Kyle Walker.
Yeah, 100%. It's been a long time coming. No one's really convinced in that role, apart from a small period where Kieran Trippier was starting there. But I think Porro has been exceptional. He's proved a lot of people wrong, as you say, since the beginning of the season. A lot of people doubted his defensive ability, but he's really shown he's very capable in that aspect. I think he's been one of the best right backs, not just for Tottenham, but in the Premier League this season. I think probably, second to Trent potentially. I think on the ball, there are very few right backs in Europe probably with his ability on the ball. I think he's got unbelievable shooting, crossing and passing ability. He really has taken to that inverted role so well, and he's really shown that he can make he can be really good defensively as well. I do wonder if he'll be starting for Spain come the Euros, because I feel like maybe, I think, does Carvajal still start for them? Or I can't remember who still starts for them, but maybe he could be a role there. I'm really hoping he could be our right back for many, many years to come. I wouldn't be surprised if it's not before long for someone like, someone from Spain, one of the big boys from Spain might start coming for him, because I do think he could be at that level very, very soon. So we spent 40 million on him, and a lot of people think we overpaid, but looking like a bargain at the moment.
It really is. It really is. And in terms of right backs that are comparable to him in the league this season, he's got more assists than Trent Alexander-Arnold this year, which is unbelievable to think about, even though Trent has had his injury problems this year. You're looking at other right backs in the Premier League who you got Trent Alexander-Arnold, you've got Ben White from Arsenal, you've got Kyle Walker.
Kyle Walker, obviously Reece James has been injured for ages. Very few.
I think in terms of performance in the Premier League this season, the only one that goes in ahead of him is probably Kyle Walker.
Yeah. But yeah, I probably agree with that. But even Kyle Walker doesn't have the ability that
it's a different kind of right back. Kyle Walker.
He plays it a bit differently. But yeah, probably Walker's the only one that can compete with him, and maybe Trent as well when he has been playing for right back of the year. So I think that goes to show how good he's been.
Yeah. So Pedro Porro goes straight into star signing as well. And then last but not least is Dejan Kulusevski. Again, we've seen him for a lot longer because he came in under Conte for those first 6 months. He was absolutely electric. And I feel like he's never reached those heights on a consistent level again since signing for Spurs. He has had a good season. I'm not saying he hasn't. And I do think he's a player of a massive ability. And I love Dejan Kulusevski. I feel like he's such a good player. But I don't know if he's 100% suited to Ange Postecoglou's system.
Yeah, it depends where we want him. I think in some games he's really good on the right hand side, and then some games he's really good centrally, and then some games on the right he gets lost a bit, and especially when he's very far out wide and he's asked to beat men consistently, sometimes he does struggle with that aspect. But in terms of the barefaced facts, he obviously 6 goals, 2 assists, and I think in terms of chances created, I think he's one of the highest in Europe at the moment. So if it wasn't for some maybe poor finishing, maybe we'd be thinking about him very differently. What I love about Kulusevski is even when he's not having the best game, he still seems to come up with something like an assist or create a chance, and he's still effective in the game a lot of the time, in my opinion. But the reality is, he hasn't nailed down that right wing spot. That is the reality because we do rotate him. So, I mean, we very rarely drop him, but he has been on the bench a few times. We do generally move him centrally rather than take him off the bench, but he has been moved from that position quite a bit.
It's interesting because he sees himself as more of a central player than a right winger. So it's interesting to see where he feels he fits into this team. Because if he feels like he fits in more centrally, then essentially you're saying that he's competing with that spot for James Maddison.
Or as a number 8 with Sarr potentially.
I think if he's any midfielder, he's more of a number 10 than number 8.
Yes and no. I don't know if he's creative enough to do what Maddison does. I think he's very creative. But from a central area, I feel like he's very good at retaining the ball. I think he's very good at carrying the ball. Does he have that passing range that Maddison has? That's why I wouldn't want him to be our creative, to have that responsibility as our sole creator like Maddison. I think Maddison can fulfill that. I don't know if he can centrally. That's why I'd want him next to a Maddison potentially, because I do think he's got the physical attributes to do that role. And I think as a secondary creator, then he's very creative as a secondary. But as a primary creator, is he that creative? I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but I do probably think he is a number 10, but I think in our system we'd probably want him as a number 8 essentially.
But then if you want him as a number 8, I don't think you want him as a number 8 against maybe when you're coming up against top class midfielders, like against your Arsenals, against your Man Cities, against your Liverpools, against your low blocks, maybe like against Palace at the weekend or against Sheffield United, against these kind of teams. You probably want him alongside Maddison, but maybe in the big games, you probably wouldn't want to play Maddison alongside Kulu.
It reminds me, this is why I compare him to like Bernardo Silva, because he obviously, some games he plays on the right, some games he plays centrally, but you wouldn't want Bernardo Silva competing with De Bruyne, would you? You want him next to a De Bruyne. Yeah. That's how Man City play him. Yeah. That's how I see Kulusevski. I wouldn't want him in place of a Maddison. I want him next to a Maddison because that's where I feel he fits. And as well, he can play on the right, he can play centrally, but he's a bit, but I feel like maybe his versatility sometimes can count against him a bit. So, I mean, it's like, would I call Bernardo Silva a squad player because he can play multiple positions? Probably not, but obviously he's not as good as Bernardo Silva. But I don't think he's a star signing because I don't think he's nailed on every week. If you know
it's
what I mean.
Interesting because I wasn't going to put him in star signing, and I was sure you were going to put him in star signing.
I love him. I think he's good enough to be a star signing, but I just feel like the reality is he hasn't nailed down his spot for one reason or another. As good as I think he is, I love him. And I do think he's had a good season. And I do think he does an important role for the team. But the reality is he hasn't nailed down, if I look at Kulusevski, I look at the 4 players above him, they're nailed on. I want them in the team. Kulusevski, I was like, I would like him in the team, but if he's out of the team, I'm not like saying, why aren't you playing him? I'm saying, okay, he's out of the team.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think he's on the levels of maybe like a Maddison, Van der Ven, Vicario,
but he's not
Porro.
on the level of Solomon either. You know what I mean?
It's true, but in Maddison, Van der Ven, Vicario, and Porro, you're like, no way are they being dropped. If any of those players are dropped, you're like, what are we doing here? Like, you'll be distraught going into that
But
game.
I do think he's closer to those players than he is to Solomon.
He is close, but Solomon was like on the brink of jury's out and squad signing. He wasn't like solid into squad signing, wasn't he? So there almost needs to be Solomon into jury's out and Kulusevski into squad signing so we don't disrespect Kulusevski.
Disrespectful. Imagine Kulu's watching this like, what? On the same level as Manor? No way. I do feel bad for him, but yeah, I do. That's probably what I'll do, to be honest.
Yeah, he's got such good attributes, such strong attributes, like his ball retention,
he can be
and
a
his ball
star.
carrying is really good. And people sometimes forget how young he actually is, because he isn't the same age as Manor, or maybe even younger.
He's younger, yeah.
So, I mean, Kulusevski, why hasn't he reached those heights since those first 6 months under Conte?
It's hard to say. I think he was one of the best wingers in Europe in that spell. It's hard to say why.
Was it an overperformance?
Maybe. I don't know. It's he's still very young, and I'm hoping he can get back there. But for one reason or another, I think this season he's been good. Don't get me wrong. I think he's been much better than he was last season. This season, but I don't know. His first season, he got 5 goals and 8 assists in, I think it was in 17 games. He was like phenomenal, and I don't know. It just hasn't quite been at that. But you could hit 10 goals this season, so that would be a good season.
How many is he on?
6.
4 more goals from now to the end of the season. It's not impossible.
Wouldn't rule it out.
It's not impossible. It's just that when you're looking at, we've spoken about it, but like on the right wing, he could be even more suited to the left wing with how left-footed he is. But it frustrates me so much that he doesn't use his right foot more, because every time he seems to use it, it seems to be with quality. So I just don't understand. That's why it's so frustrating.
And he knows it as well. He knows it as well.
Yeah.
All right, we'll put him in squad signing.
All right, well, let's run through the tiers with you guys one more time. Starting from the bottom, Timo Werner is going into not good enough. Ones for the future are Radu Dragusin, Alejo Veliz, and Ashley Phillips. Jury's out on Brennan Johnson, Manor Solomon, and Dejan Kulusevski in the squad signings. And then star signings go to James Maddison, Micky van der Ven, Vicario, and Pedro Porro. So in terms of the business that we've done under Ange Postecoglou, I think that's really positive.
Yeah, mostly very, very good. Obviously, no one's been a proper flop, I would say, even though we've put Werner not good enough. Like, I don't think he's flopped. I just think he's not good enough to sign him permanently, but I think he's good enough to be here for 6 months. So I think the hit rate there is quite good at the moment.
Yeah, and I think it's a testament as well to not just the signings that we've brought in under Ange Postecoglou, but ever since Don Paratici has joined the club, I think it's definitely gone in a massive step in the right direction. So that is our tier list with the Ange Postecoglou signings. Let us know in the comment section below, do you agree with our tiers? If you disagree, let us know where you would place each and every player into these individual specific tiers. But that is it from us today. Thank you everyone for joining. Like, subscribe and comment. And as always, come on, you